Well, Chris is coming. Liz. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us. We apologize for the delay here this evening. We had some technical difficulties, but we are up and running. So I will call the meeting to order at 5:16. I would ask everyone to stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you very much. I wanted to just start off the meeting with a couple of items on the board chair report. Mike Vaccaro will be joining us later. He is actually on the governor's call this evening, but he'll be with us after that. I want to start off by thanking everyone for their work so far in the budget process. It's not an easy process to go through. Change is never easy, but necessary, and I think together we're going to come out on top as far as what we need and what is right for the district. So I thank everyone, administration and board members, for their continued work on that. Update for the COVID. So far, we've seen that the state has gone to phase 1B, which includes individuals that are 75 and older, healthcare professionals, long-term care facility residents, and medical first responders. We now have 3 phases of phase 1B. The second phase coming up soon will be individuals that are the age 65 to 74. And then after that, our much anticipated and waited for frontline essential workers, which includes our teachers. And please know that we are doing everything we can as a board to push that forward to get those vaccinations as quickly as possible for our essential workers. The last item I wanted to mention is next week is the Cabe legislation breakfast. For any of you that can join us, that would be on Thursday, the 4th. For our region, it will be online, virtual. It's from 8 until 9 a.m., and you can register for that at the Cabe website, and I'm sure Mike will speak further on that during his liaison reports. With that being said, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Young for special recognition. Not Dr. Young, sorry, you're way out there, sorry. Dr. Nickel.
Thank you very much, Ms. Zen. And we have a very exciting recognition today, and I want to have Principal Nash and Maria Enrique come forward if you have a quick moment over to the microphone. The first thing I wanted to say was we're going to be honoring Ellington Middle School teacher Maria Enrique today. But what I wanted to say is her friend and colleague also came, Tori Schilling, who is also a UConn grad. And what I wanted to mention is that the award that Maria Enrique is received from UConn was also received 2 years ago by Tori Schilling. And what's interesting, the backstory of this is that credit goes to some of the talented UConn pipeline that we have to some of our former administrators. And I just wanted to give them some appreciation. So we know that our former Assistant Superintendent, Erin McGurk, who is here for quite some time, it was about a 12-year run. She is well embedded in UConn. And also former principal of Ellington Middle School, Dave Pearson, also is well embedded in UConn. And what they have done in terms of infusing talent into the middle school and other positions is they've recruited some of the best and the brightest from UConn, and so we are forever indebted to some awesome recruitment and talent development that they have done for us. And so what I'm going to do is turn it over to Principal Nash so he can say a few words about Maria Enrique, about her award from UConn. Go ahead, Principal Nash.
Good evening, everyone. I'm thrilled to be here tonight to honor Maria Enrique for this Early Outstanding Professional Award. Maria is an outstanding teacher. She's been with us for about 4 years now. She started a little bit early, actually took a long-term sub before starting in her permanent position. She's such an asset to our school in every way, both in the classroom and outside of the classroom. Maria is passionate about equity. This year, she just started our social justice club at the middle school, where she and a group of students are working to make Ellington Middle School a more inclusive and tolerant place. Maria's passion for teaching is evident. If anyone's ever walked into her classroom, I know some of you may have at a visit, it's just enthusiasm for learning, enthusiasm for just being with kids and being together and forming a positive community. Evidence of that, just last week or earlier this week, I was walking down the hallway and I heard karaoke going on. So I, of course, had to pop in and see, and Miss Enrique was, in fact, treating her math class to a little bit of High School Musical karaoke. She did not know that I walked into the classroom behind her. They didn't tell her either, so that was funny. But Maria is just so passionate for teaching. She's also been a key integral part of the math work we've done at Ellington Middle School. Reorganizing our curriculum and really thinking about how we're going to provide equitable learning opportunities for all kids. And Maria's been a teacher leader in that work and has been at the forefront of thinking about how we can change math instruction to make sure it's inclusive and make sure it has high expectations for all. So I'm thrilled. I couldn't think of a teacher that was more deserving of this award, and we're so proud of Maria, and we know that she has done great things and has many great things in her future to come.
And Marie, if you want to say a few words, you can adjust the mic there.
Yeah, you're a little taller than me. I just want to say thank you so much. It's such an honor to be recognized. I love my career. I love working with kids every day. As Mike said, I like to share all of my passions with them: math, singing, just being silly together. And I am so grateful that we can still share those moments even in this crazy year. I think my distance learner parents might disagree a little bit as they're listening to my karaoke at home too. But just sharing different bits as much as we can in this crazy environment. And I'm just so lucky and I'm blessed, and I just love my job. And thank you to Ellington for giving me this opportunity to live out my passion.
Maria, thank you so much for everything that you do for the schools. We appreciate that. Next on the agenda is Citizens and Staff Forum. Jen, do we have? Oh, yes, certainly.
Good evening, everyone.
Hi, Mike.
I just want to address the board, and I know that the budget process every year is a tough thing to go through, but I was dismayed by some of the changes that I heard, particularly to the library media specialist positions and to the art positions at the elementary level that came out of the Finance Committee last night. Now, I think we should all be very proud that during Dr. Nichols' tenure here, we haven't had a single reduction in force, and we've maintained the high quality of teaching and learning throughout the district that we're known for. I'm concerned that if we continue with these changes that I know we're still in the process of, that we might sacrifice some of those high quality standards that we're known for. I can also understand from the position of certain board members and parents the need and the desire for a gifted learning program and for enrichment. And frankly, I think that a lot of teachers would be excited to work with you and help design that program if we could. Not to be too mercenary about it, but I think that just from a return on investment standpoint, if you offered something in terms of like a coaching and learning model similar to like the athletic program in a stipend position, you could not only reach much more students, you could also increase the diversity of those offerings. You could, allow for a lot more passions to sprout and allow kids to kind of naturally gravitate to what they want. And you get just a much better bang for your buck, for lack of a better term. Now, again, I know that everyone here is committed to making sure that the high standard that we have set in Ellington continues, and I hope to work with you guys and work with administration on this budget so we can get something that continues that without any reduction in force. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Consent agenda is the next item. Is there anything anyone wanted to change on the consent agenda? Hearing nothing, the consent agenda passes as read. Report and discussion items, special reports, continued discussion on the budget. Mr. Greenlee. And just before Brian begins, I do want to say that it's a continued discussion. If it's the pleasure of the board, there is no need to make absolute decisions tonight. We can continue discussion. We do have another meeting scheduled for next week, so we can continue discussion at that time if it's necessary. Thank you.
Yeah, I don't have anything specific to present tonight. This is kind of an opportunity for the board to continue discussion coming out of the Finance Committee. Certainly ask any questions of administration on what we discussed at Finance Committee last night or any other parts of the budget that you'd like some answers on. So I'd be happy to entertain that.
Okay, so I'll open it up to the board for discussion. Does anyone have any additional questions, comments? You can't hear what I'm saying? Sorry.
I can't hear what anybody's really saying.
Okay, is that better?
For you, yeah.
For me, okay. So do you want to start? We're going to do comments, questions on the budget. Do you have an additional questions?
Yep, I will. Okay, so I guess I was talking to Brian. I was talking to Brian, and I asked if our dental reserve could be used to offset some health insurance, and he said, no, it can't. And maybe you could explain that. Where is Brian?
Yeah, sure. The dental self-insurance fund is set up specifically for dental self-insurance. That's what the money's set aside for. And is that better? It's really meant to be reserves for dental self-insurance. What I've discussed at the Finance Committee last night is if we can work through the town side, and it has to be in collaboration with the Board of Selectmen, moving that excess reserve that we may have into the medical self-insurance fund from the dental self-insurance fund will be able to help offset our reserves when we move self-insurance at some point in time. Spending that on operating is not really something that I believe we should consider, and not necessarily something I don't think the Board of Selectmen would consider, just because that's not necessarily the intent of the fund as it's set up. Moving it from dental to medical in a reserve fashion is more in line with the original intent.
Anything else, Liz?
Thanks, Brian. Are we going to be hearing soon about the insurance quotes?
Yes, we did
By
get
next-
some. Yeah, we did get some initial quotes back on Friday, which were right about in line with the 9% that we're holding in the budget, maybe even a little bit north of that. And so we are going to look at those and invite those back to those that were the lowest back in order to kind of get a better price if we can. I also got word late today that another company that originally came in with a much higher bid looked at their numbers and came down significantly to the point where they're the lowest bidder. And so we have to look at that pretty in depth to understand why they did that. Then we'll be able to have a recommendation. I'm hoping by the board meeting next Wednesday, the 3rd, that we'll have a stronger recommendation of what we will be able to cut from the medical insurance fund. I believe it will be something. The question is how much, and I don't know that right now.
I also have a question about the gifted and talented. Can you hear me? No. Okay. What I was wondering, I know in New York I was involved with that, and we did get funding because it was under special education. Is that the case in Connecticut? I saw it on the statutes, but I'm not sure if and how much that would be if we did get funding, because it would be under special education.
Is Brian Hendrickson out there too? I do know that it is falls under the realm of special education. There's formal laws and processes that have to be followed, but I don't believe that there is any grant money tied to specifically gifted and talented, at least not that I've seen.
Good evening, everyone. Liz, to the point about the special education being the umbrella for talented and gifted, that is accurate. In the Connecticut statutes and the guidelines regarding, the talented and gifted, school districts are required to identify under child find students who qualify as talented and gifted, but school districts are not required to provide services for talented and gifted students. So as far as the funding, I'm unaware of any specific state funding that would go exclusively to that. I'm happy to do additional research and investigation with Dr. Laporte looking into that. But due to the state of Connecticut not requiring school districts to provide talented and gifted, that's just something to take into consideration when we're thinking of funding.
Okay, so would Christy know that information by next week?
Yeah, we'll be happy to look into that and give a follow-up. You're welcome.
Are you all set, Liz? Okay, well, we'll come back to you if necessary. Miriam? Closer.
I'd like, Scott, you to explain a little bit more about the library media specialists, where your proposal was to go from 4 to 2, and you told me today that one person was staying at Windermere and one at the middle school, and that left just library assistant, media assistant at Center and Crystal Lake. Are the library media specialists, the two, expected to be itinerant, or is your proposal that Center School and Crystal Lake just have an assistant media specialist?
Okay, thank you, Miriam, for that question. So the K-8 library media specialists, right? So there's 3.6, one full-time at the middle school, one full-time at the Center School, one full-time at Windermere, and a 0.6 at Crystal Lake. Each of those schools also have one media assistant or paraprofessional. They're in the paraprofessional bargaining unit, okay? The proposal is to maintain a media assistant at all 4 of the schools still. So they will be in all 4 schools on a consistent basis, Monday through Friday. The reduction is 1.6. One of the 1.0 reduction is the position that won't be filled based on attrition of the retirement of one of our employees. The 0.6 at Crystal Lake won't be filled. So there will be 2 K-8 library media specialists assigned to those 4 schools. Now, exactly how those 2 library media specialists will be allocated, what that will look like, will be a process that will be run by Mr. Hendrickson and will involve our media assistants, our library media specialists, will involve feedback and conversations with our teachers at the elementary and middle schools to determine the non-negotiables, but also we will be folding in our tech integrationists at the elementary level, any of the gifted and talented and or enrichment positions that we have there, to create a K-8 program where what the services that are required for our students and the support for our teachers is maintained and enhanced. That process has to be a collaborative one, working with our teachers, our paras, and our administrators to figure that out. What was proposed is, if the board is feeling okay about moving forward with the model, is for that process to happen February, March, and then more than likely the April board meeting, where we would propose all the different roles and responsibilities, the standards of how we're going about doing that. And that would be a collaborative process.
Miriam, do you have additional questions? Are you all set, Miriam, or do you have additional questions?
No, I think I'm okay right now. Thank you, Jen.
Okay. Marcia?
Hi. Yeah, could we just talk for a minute about the .4 art reduction as well? I know that what a difficult process it is to get a budget. I was at Windermere with Amy when she was teaching 800 plus students, and it was difficult, and I just wondered about this .4 cut. Thank you.
Yes, absolutely, Marcia. And I'm just going to preface my remarks, but I'm going to ask Mr. Hendrickson to come on up so he can provide some more detail. But while he's walking up, the one thing I want to mention to the board, and I know they know this, but also to any of the people watching on YouTube Live is, the elimination of positions, whether the library media specialist or the art position, it's not something we're excited about. It's not something that we want to do. If we had our druthers, if money wasn't a concern, we would maintain those positions. And just to kind of show you, I think this has been 3 years, and where the .4 art teacher was something that I proposed in a budget to add, to make scheduling easier, to kind of give more flexibility to the art programming at the elementary. And we like having the .4 art position, elementary position. We think it's an important position. However, this is a budget process, and we have to make some difficult decisions. And so we do feel we can run the elementary art program to satisfaction, eliminating that. Now, we understand that that's a board choice, and Mr. Hendrickson can provide some more context. But this is where we're at, one of these difficult situations where we have a thin staffing model, we have to make some tough choices, and we're trying our best to ensure that, A, when we propose any elimination of positions, that for the most part, people don't lose their jobs, because that's important. And any proposal of elimination of positions, that it has a minimal impact on the programming. That's where we are at with the library media specialist and the .4 art position. So I'll let Mr. Hendrickson just talk a little bit more about that, Marcia, and hopefully that can give you some more information.
Sure, be happy to. And before I comment on that, I just want to echo Dr. Nichols' comments on the importance of all of our programming. And you heard earlier from Mark Mahler talking about the highly effective teaching programs that we have, including our specials and unified arts at the elementary schools, and none of this is done in an easy way or something that is ideal. It's looked at very closely, and getting into the reduction of that position from an operational standpoint, looking at number of teachers, number of students, like number of sections throughout the day, operationally, it's not ideal, as Dr. Nichols said, but that is something that we can do when we look at our staffing model. Again, the number of sections, the schedule, how we run that. It's not ideal. However, we can proceed and not have the art program impacted based on our numbers operationally.
How many classes would that art teacher have each day in order to service every kid at Windermere?
Yeah, so Liz, great question. And one of the things just to point out is that the number of specials classes that our specialists see can vary by school per year. So sometimes it's 5 classes per day. In other cases, in other schools, it's 7. So there is a variance, and that's something that we've been looking at over the years. But historically, our elementary schools, the special area teachers have varied year to year. So based on doing the 6 or the 7 classes, that is something that the reduction, we're still able to provide that level of programming to students receiving art.
Would you repeat that, because I'm not hearing?
Yeah, so the answer is, the question is how many art classes, does the art teacher see? It varies year to year, and based on COVID, this year is very different. So in some of our art, I'm sorry, I thought I heard a question. I know there's a little echo here. But so it depends, Liz, it depends.
So I guess I'm kind of trying to find out how many minutes kids get art in a week. I mean, is it going to be less than 40 minutes? Is it going to be, how many minutes do they get art?
In general, it's 45 to 50 minutes per week.
Okay. So by eliminating that .4 teacher from the program, you're going to give students less art time. I mean, that's the only way it would work.
So the issue is that the art teachers don't all have the same number of art sections per day. And this is based on, last year, pre-COVID. So that's something we've looked at. We need to have more equity and consistency across the schools. Once we do that, the art programming, based on our numbers, will remain the same.
But they will have, they're going to have less art time. I mean, if you put the numbers together, they're going to have less art time. The kids.
So if an art teacher is teaching 5 classes per day, when they increase to 6 or 7 classes per day, consistent with their colleagues at the other schools, that's able to be absorbed.
So the teachers may be teaching 7 classes of art a day, is what you're saying?
Yeah, there's variables involved in the scheduling. Each of the elementary schools is slightly different, and there's also travel time that's involved. So there's a lot of moving pieces. We'll be happy to provide a very clear update for you if you'd like to see the specific numbers by school.
Well, I don't think we should be cutting art at this point in time. I mean, you're talking about a .4 teacher, so that's just my opinion. And you're talking about, I mean, with art, you've got to get set up, there's cleanup with every class. I mean, there's just more time that the kids need to be in that room than a 25, 30-minute class, and that's what it's going to end up to be.
Okay, thank you, Liz. Anyone else have additional comments? Welcome, Chris. We're discussing the budget. Did you have any additional comments or questions regarding the budget that you wanted to ask at this time? You're good, okay. Okay, you're welcome. Okay, with anybody else? Any other further questions at this point?
I would just like one more thing.
Closer.
It's not on, I don't know. What I would like to say is that I really feel that the library media specialists can really help with the gifted and talented program if we continue to keep that in, because they do have access to so much information to help with them getting additional services and being able to find the resources for kids easier because of their background. So.
Thank you. Miriam, did you have one? Yes, go ahead.
Yes, I'd just like to say that I have some concerns about cutting positions for a program that appears to be TBD, to be determined. I'd feel much more comfortable if I knew that these staff reductions were going into something concrete. But I have some concerns, some grave concerns about agreeing to this for something that I don't know what it's going to look like.
Okay, thank you, Miriam. Anyone else? Okay, moving ahead, the report and discussion, oh no, that was, sorry, regular board committee reports, starting with operations. Carrie is not with us. Did you want to give an update? Go ahead, Brian.
I'm going to give an update. I'm going to give an update there. So the main topic, the only topic of the operations committee that was held on January 13th was the Windermere building project. We had a very lengthy discussion about the project as to whether or not to move it forward in this calendar year, being submit an application by June 30th, 2021, in order to get it approved by the legislature in 2022, or to move it off a year, get it approved and into the state by June 30th, 2022, to be approved by the legislature in 2023. The reason for the discussion was, as you probably saw in our Saturday workshop, as well as in the budget book, the enrollment projections for Windermere and the district as a whole, coming from NESDEC, changed pretty significantly in 1 year. So from 2020, December 2020, Windermere was projected, December 2019, Windermere was projected at 788 students. And this year, December 2020, it was projected at 680 or so students, a drop of about 100. And so, you know, that has a big implication for the project because it cuts out about 6 to 8 classrooms from that, which if the enrollment is to, you know, increase post-COVID, and, you know, the enrollment projections are kind of an anomaly due to reductions from COVID, and that those return, then, you know, we're going to be short 6 to 8 classrooms by the time the building project is done, and that's not something, you know, that we think that is in the best interest of the town going forward. And so there was a lengthy discussion on ways to possibly do it. What kind of came out of it was there are, you know, kind of 3 paths forward. One is to push it off a year, which most of the board on the operations committee felt was the path to go. There was not unanimous consent on that. Then the other 2 options are to build the project bigger than is allowable and get a reduction to the percentage that is reimbursed by the state, so costs more for the town, or to build it at the size of 680 students, and then if enrollment numbers go back up, have to go back to the town for another referendum and go back to the state for more money. Again, the preference on that of the committee was to delay a year. They felt that those other options had too much risk associated with them or costs associated with them, and so that's kind of where we left it. You do have a potential add action item for that in your packets tonight to potentially delay that a year based on the straw poll from the operations committee.
Yeah, and if I could add to that, Ms. Zen, can you hear me? Yes? There we go. Okay. So I just wanted to add to that. I think to boil it down, these were my sentiments that I mentioned at the operations committee. We were very close pre-COVID to going to a referendum with what we felt to be reasonable enrollment projections and a project that I think the Board of Education, the Board of Finance, the Board of Selectmen, the Planning and Zoning were all very well informed of. And unfortunately, COVID derailed that, and I think it was a fine decision to not go forward with the referendum. You know, things have changed over time here, and when we do this project, when the town makes this significant investment, we have to be sure, we have to be solid on that level of an expenditure for the taxpayer dollars. It's a big deal. I know most of the board members recognize, and this is what I said at the meeting, was I tend to want to move and progress in a very crisp fashion. Typically, I want to move forward with these projects and get them done. However, my gut is telling me that because we have two variant enrollment projections, that it would be unwise to push forward with a project with that much variance. We have one that is just flat, and then we have one that is increasing. And the last thing, and this school districts have run into this problem in the region, where they build a school that is too small, or they build a school that is way too big. And that causes all sorts of issues. And that's not, in our opinion, where Ellington needs to be. So the recommendation from the administration was to wait a year, and I know that was also where the committee, the operations committee landed. So I just wanted to give you my take on that. So the superintendent and the administration fully support where the operations committee has landed at this point in time, and certainly it's for the board's discussion and discretion on how they would like to move forward.
I'll just add one more thing, if you don't mind. Hello? So just one more thing to add there. From the administration standpoint, and I think also, paraphrasing the discussion from the operations committee, there was still the commitment to do something at Windermere because it is a building that needs to be addressed for a multitude of reasons, not the least of which is a roof that is in dire need of replacement. And so, the discussion was not, do we put this off forever based on these enrollment changes, even if they were to stay, kind of the same numbers next year. It's let's get a demographer in here, get the best numbers that we can, and then proceed with the project as was kind of envisioned in the long-term plan.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions regarding what was discussed at Operations Committee? Okay, so everyone's comfortable moving forward with a motion this evening? Okay, thank you. Policy Committee, Chris.
Okay, do I have to do anything? The Policy Committee, that's awkward. The Policy Committee met on Monday, January 11th, and we had two revised bylaws to discuss, the first of which was a continued discussion. I reported on it last month as well. It's revised bylaw 9326, minutes/taping. And based on committee feedback after our last policy committee meeting, Dr. Nickel made further revisions to this bylaw, and that was what he presented to the committee at this meeting. The revisions included the minimum 3-month time frame for retaining audio and video minutes was changed to 3 years. We were concerned, as you'll remember, that 3 months wasn't long enough, so we changed that to 3 years. The requirement to have board minutes available in unapproved form within 72 hours now explicitly includes committee meeting minutes. It was implied before, but now with the revised language, it explicitly includes that. And then lastly, all of the minutes that are approved by the full board, Dr. Nickel changed the language to have those minutes signed by the secretary, including the committee minutes. We changed that, and this is what you'll see in front of you, to the secretary of the board signs all of the full board minutes, but the committee minutes will be signed by each committee chair. And there were no further concerns, so that revision is before you as a first read tonight. And then the second bylaw that we discussed, it's kind of in conjunction with the other one. This is bylaw 9132, standing committees. This bylaw was brought for review because as we discussed the minutes taping, there seemed to be some inconsistency and some confusion as to who was responsible for the minutes of the committee meeting. And it did say in there that it is the chair's responsibility. We changed that to make it the chair or their designee would be responsible for each committee each committee meeting's minutes. So very minor revision regarding that. It just clarified it a little bit. And then upon further discussion and further review of that bylaw, we saw that there was a sentence that didn't need to be in there. It actually said that each committee would be conducting an annual assessment of the school system as it relates to that committee and identifying committee goals for that year. That's not current practice. It's not necessary. We do that as part of the SIPs and DIPs. So we removed that from the policy. So that revised bylaw is also in front of you tonight as a first read.
Thank you, Chris. Finance. Liz?
Okay, we met last night, and we met with staff from the preschool program, and they requested an increase of 25 cents an hour for regular preschool children, and that will be coming to you as a motion. We recommend that we do increase to $6.25 an hour as opposed to what it was before, which was $6. Dr. Nickel presented changes to the budget, and we have discussed that already, so I won't get into detail on that. And we also, we discussed the budget, and we do have a deficit in the food service account of $200,000, which we need to be able to, we might be able to use some COVID money that we will be getting, some grants there. And if Brian wants to talk to that, would you like to do that now?
The food service count, as you know, we've been running that all year. Labor's been about the same. Our food numbers, even though we've applied for the summer school program, which allows all students to get free meals, just because the counts of students in the buildings are lower, our overall sales have been down. And so we do project a deficit there of about $200,000. I do believe that we'll be able to cover that in total with operating, including the potential money that we would get from ESSER round 2. And so, but we'll have more updates for that. I'm actually have a meeting tomorrow to kind of get an update on that. And I'm hoping that we can actually bring it down from the $200,000 to between 150 and 175. A lot of it, quite frankly, and what a lot of districts across the state are facing is a lot of it came from our hybrid operations in September, where we had, again, about the same staffing model and, a much more significant reduction of students and sales. And so, the $200,000 is one of the lower that I've heard across the state because many of them are running $500,000 to $1 million, believe it or not, in a deficit based on their operating model for school. So, we can cover the current deficit within our operating budget, hopefully, but that's kind of where we're going.
Thank you. The next committee would be curriculum, and I will speak for Dr. Young. There was no curriculum meeting this month, but the next one, he assures us, will be on February 16th at 5 p.m. And that's it for curriculum. Communications, Jen Mullen, did we have, there wasn't a meeting this month, right? There was no communications meeting this month. Okay, thank you. Administrative report, superintendent's report.
Yes, thank you. Ms. Zen, so I have a brief report for you to cover a couple of topics. As the board remembers that you received a letter or an email that I sent to all the Connecticut superintendents regarding the legislative platform that you all signed off on. And as you recall, that is the endorsement calling for state legislators to increase or expand the CREC teacher residency program that Ellington currently is an early adopter, with currently a residency teacher resident over at Windermere School. And what I wanted to say was that has been very well received by the RESCs throughout the state. I've received several correspondence saying, this is great, thank you so much for reaching out and endorsing what a great program CREX is. Different superintendents have contacted me and have contacted their state legislatures. I'm also very well aware that Jason Rojas, who is a majority leader, has sent this out to many of the state legislators on the Democratic Party. And I will be on the agenda at the legislative breakfast next week to speak about this. So this is being very well received, and I think the board should be very proud of the position that you've taken, not only this year, but you're actually the only board that I'm aware of that actually develops and works with the superintendent and signs off on and endorses a legislative platform on an annual basis. So I think it's one of the, it really brands Ellington as someone who, as an organization who really wants to impact and advocate for things that they believe in. I also think that I'm very proud that the Ellington Board of Education is also enjoined in this initiative with BLAC, which is the Black Leaders and Administrator Consortium that I am a member of. And as you all know, that was part of the letter that was sent out. And that is something that Ellington should be proud of. I also wanted to mention that the CAPS has, and CAPS is the Connecticut Association of Public School Superintendents. They have developed a blueprint for, essentially revamping education in the state of Connecticut. Our legislative platform, our legislative agenda aligns with item number 10 on that platform that CAPS has done. So we are also aligned with CAPS. So this is a great collaborative initiative, and I'm very proud to be associated with it and with the Ellington Board of Education. And I do think that it has a really great chance of expanding throughout the state of Connecticut and for extra funding to be received through the state to continue to offer opportunities for our Black and Hispanic aspiring educators, not only in our urban centers, but also in our rural and suburban school districts. So I think we should be really proud of that fact. So the other item I had is just a very quick FYI. You had a memo that John Gidry, principal of the high school, sent over to me. This is just to keep you informed. It's an FYI of the same grading practices and approaches that were used in March of last year due to COVID are going to be extended through this school year, and the details are in there. It's exactly what went through the curriculum committee last year and was discussed at the board meeting. From the teachers and the administration's perspective at the high school, they are constantly looking at all of the kids, all of the students, their progress, and they feel that continuing the same practice they used at the end of last year is going to be beneficial to the students. So I just wanted to keep you informed of that, so you were apprised of that approach. That is all I have, Ms. Senn.
Thank you, Scott. Any questions for Dr. Nickel? Yes, go ahead, Liz.
Now, that, the cost for this program is in the budget.
Yes, so the cost for the program is fully funded in the choice grant budget. So it is not in the current 3.38% that is what was proposed. That is not included in that 3.38%. It's in the choice program.
But is it specific to the resident teacher, that grant, or is it part of the entire choice grant?
It is, so the choice grant has many different line items to it, as you are aware. And there's a specific line item for approximately $65,000 for one teacher resident for next year. If we receive additional grant funding through the state, we might be able to fully pay for that one or possibly have two. We'll see what happens.
But as of now, we don't specifically have it for that. It's just the choice grant.
Just the choice grant. There's no funds in the operating budget.
All right, so how much did we receive last year for that?
So last year, the cost was different. The cost for this year, this particular year, was about $50,000. There was a grant that the state had. The total grant was $150,000. We applied for that grant, and they funded the entire amount, the entire $50,000. So the taxpayers of Ellington are not paying for the program as it stands now, and will not pay next year.
Okay.
Chris, yes, please go ahead.
I have a little bit of concern about the grading thing, only because I realize that if they choose the pass-fail, then the grades aren't, it doesn't go into the formulation for their rank. And I'm just concerned that, can somebody use that pass-fail to then like bump somebody out of, say, class scholar position or something like that who hasn't done that? Like they're using all of their grades toward their rank, and then some people who aren't, can they do that? Could that happen?
I know that Mr. Hendrickson has spoken at length with Mr. Guidry on this, so I would ask him to provide further details. It's a great question, Chris. Thank you.
Sure, Chris, happy to discuss that. So it's a very valid question, that taking advantage of the situation in order to have a higher rank, understanding conversations with Principal Guidry is it a statistical possibility? Perhaps. At the same time, it would be detrimental for a student who is pursuing a class rank, valedictorian, salutatorian, et cetera, to do that. It would, at that level of performance, it could have a negative impact more times than not.
Okay, that's what I was hoping, but still I had to ask the question.
Yeah.
It did concern me. As soon as I read that, I was just like, oh, because I know, just from my personal experience with my own kids, when kids are at that level, a couple of hundredths of a point or whatever can make a difference. And I was just, I know sometimes, people can play, students can kind of play a game with it a little bit to get the best advantage. And I just want to make sure that it's not going to be at the detriment of other students.
Yes, that is on the radar of the high school administration and is dealt with very specifically on a case-by-case basis. And I'll be happy to report back, on behalf of high school admin, if there's any instances where that may be an issue, we would bring that to the attention of the board right away.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, thank you. Director's reports. We have the EPS mid-year climate parent staff surveys. Might as well stay standing, Mr. Hendrickson.
I just spun around here, so thank you. So in your board packet, you do have a memo update from me on this. And just a couple highlights to point out. We had 1,291 family responses, 915 student responses, grades 3 through 12, and 281 staff responses. And the numbers that you see, the highlights, are very consistent with what I observe when I'm in the schools each week. And that's a credit to our students, to our staff, to our families, the wonderful teamwork and collaboration that has gone on in a very challenging year. This is a testament to the strength, resolve, dedication, and grit of the community. I get goosebumps when I'm in the schools and I see how resilient our staff and students have been. It's been truly amazing. And one thing I do want to point out of interest In the staff survey, there was a question, and the question, you take a position on the statement, I feel comfortable approaching an administrator if I have a problem. And we had 93% of our staff strongly agree or agree with that statement. I think the budget discussion, just to point out, and hearing from Mark Mahler on behalf of the teachers, we take a tremendous amount of pride in working through potential problems. So we'll continue to do that under the most difficult of circumstances, whether it's budget, whether it's safety issues, whether it's teaching and learning. That is a hallmark of Ellington Public Schools, and we should all be very proud of the work that goes into that. The areas for growth, we do see stress management as a major issue. And high school grading practices, just to connect to that, is the high school has done an awesome job analyzing data, looking at ways to help students navigate a very challenging year. And we know our silver students can have some challenges that our in-person students don't have. So that's something we're very aware of, and that my teacher really knows me as a person. One thing to point out, and also in your packet, you have the panorama surveys for each of the schools, is that at the secondary level, the teachers teaching the students in person and online has had an impact on that. And the teachers feeling like, well, when I have the kids in front of me, I can't really be present 100% for them because I have the kids online. And the kids online, I can't really be 100% present for them because I have the kids in front of me. The half the school model at the elementary level and having those silver standalone has just been highly effective for the district, and I want to thank the board for all the support, and our teachers, again, working that model just incredibly well with the support of administration, and again, the board, the community, and the parents. So just pointing those things out. The connectedness, again, at the secondary level versus the elementary level, more challenging, and we know that silver dynamic of having students in both in front of you and at home. Very challenging for our secondary teachers, and they're doing just a tremendous job navigating through all that. And the key measures that connect back to the district and the school improvement plans, I'm taught how to manage my stress. We're really leaning into that. We're working with youth services and doing a lot of work with the psychological first aid and just helping people really take a moment, breathe, reflect, have self-care. So wonderful work going all around. This is a brief update. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Hendrickson. I will start. I'm wondering, with the updated key district-based qualitative measures, if we couldn't see what the goals were. It's not in here, but perhaps at another time, if we can see, like we have December 2020, these are the actuals like for 2020 and 2019, but what were our goals comparatively?
Yeah, so the target on the right-hand column is the 2021 target that was set in previous year. That still remains in there. The new targets that are set that were different for this year due to COVID, that connectedness, we did add them. So that's a target for the I feel connected to my school, 77 to 80. And then the other one, I feel connected to my child's school from families, 87 to 90. And those are place setters. And we always want to try to have as much growth as possible.
Okay.
And there's also the annual report is included as well. So the climate numbers are put into that annual report, which has the district improvement plan that kind of articulates that very, a little bit more clear than the memo.
Okay, thank you.
Welcome.
I also noticed that I feel comfortable approaching an administrator across the board looked excellent, over 90%, which I liked. The one thing that I was looking at across the district was my child feels challenged at school, which I know lends itself towards the gifted and talented in some sense, as well as building additional personalized learning for these kids who don't feel challenged on a regular basis is definitely something we should be looking at.
Yeah, and in conjunction with that, what I learn in school is valuable taking a look at that. And you do see, and this is nationally, you see that kind of trail down as you, kids they find school very valuable, like in the 90s and the, grades 3, 4, 5, 6, and then as they go into adolescence, their focus is on their peer group and it drops a little bit. But with the course offerings, the new course proposals at the high school in particular, just again, let you know the focus on this. How can we make our curriculum as relevant as possible, make connections to the real world? The geometry and construction course at the high school, working with Barber Utilities, really bringing the kids, like seeing that real world connection, hyper focus on that.
Excellent, thank you. Anyone else have any questions or observations? Thank you, Mr. Hendrickson. Excellent report. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Monthly financial report, Mr. Greenleaf.
Yep, so you have your monthly financial report there in your packet. As I said kind of before at finance, we still do have a strong balance. There are a couple accounts in there that mostly tied to COVID that right now are in the negative that we'll have to make up for. And I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
I'll open it up to any questions. Quiet group tonight. Okay. Board liaison reports. Ayushman, any updates for us? Anything? Nothing for the liaison? Okay. Gary, anything for CREC?
No.
No. Marcia, anything for EDU? Nothing. Okay. Nothing? No? Okay. I guess we're all set with liaison reports. Action items. Anyone like to start us off?
I move to add as action item number 6, determine pre-kindergarten tuition rates for fiscal years 2022 to 2024.
Motion on the floor. We hear a second. Seconded by Liz. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Signify by saying aye.
Aye.
You can't hear.
I didn't hear what you said.
Oh, she read off the motion for the addition. Move to add the addition, item number 6.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Did you want to, you're okay, okay. All in favor, aye? Say aye.
Aye.
Signify by
Aye.
saying aye. Opposed, abstained? Okay, motion passes.
I'm sorry, Miriam. I will try to be louder. I move that upon the recommendation of the Policy Committee, the Board of Education hold a second and final vote to adopt the Ellington Public Schools revised Bylaw 9321, time, place, and notifications of meetings as presented.
Second.
Who was that? Marcia, second. Any discussion? Yes.
I have some concerns about the 72-hour limit. I looked at our list of meetings that were scheduled, and sometimes they're scheduled very close to a board meeting. And so how are we going to deal with making those minutes available? Would we put off any action until the following board meeting?
Go ahead, Scott. You want?
Yes, Miriam. Yes, Miriam. I think it. Yes, Miriam. I think it varies based on the meeting and if there's a motion and a recommendation for action. Typically, sometimes we push it to the following board meeting, so there's time. Sometimes when there's no really action required and we just want to give a quick update and the minutes aren't there, we will go through the update. So it just varies.
Is that something we need to have in writing?
We do not.
Okay, thank you.
Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Abstained? Motion passes.
I move that upon the recommendation of the Policy Committee, the Board of Education hold a second and final vote to adopt the Ellington Public Schools revised policy 6146, graduation requirements, as presented.
Seconded by Marcia. Any discussion? Any discussion? No? Okay. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, abstained, motion passes.
I move that upon the recommendation of the Policy Committee, the Board of Education hold a first vote to adopt the Ellington Public Schools Revised Bylaw 9326 minutes taping as presented.
Second.
Seconded by Liz. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, motion passes.
I move that upon the recommendation of the Policy Committee, the Board of Education hold a first vote to adopt the Ellington Public Schools Revised Bylaw 9132 standing committees as presented.
Second.
Seconded by Liz. Any discussion? Okay. Yeah, we're getting feedback here. Okay. All in agreement signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, motion passes. Number 5, to determine the status of the Windermere building project. Someone care to read the motion?
I move that the Board reaffirm its commitment to a long-range capital project at Windermere Elementary School, but recommend delaying any planned referendum until early 2022 and to seek additional enrollment projections in the fall of 2021 to ensure any capital project proposed is set at the right size and scope.
Seconded by Marcia. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, motion passes. Number 6, determine pre-kindergarten tuition rates for fiscal year 2022 through 2024.
I move that upon recommendation of the Finance Committee, the Board of Education shall approve an increase in pre-kindergarten tuition rates by 25 cents per hour for each consecutive fiscal year, beginning July 1st, 2021, and ending June 30th, 2024.
Second.
Seconded by Miriam. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, abstained, motion passes. Thank you. Moving on to new and old business. Anyone with round table discussion or correspondence? Okay, then we will.
Can I just?
Yes, please, go ahead.
I just would like to see us try to look at this budget and find ways of bringing in a gifted program, bringing in an unassigned teacher, and also keeping the library media specialist. And I know we're all looking at things, and maybe we can even look at, maybe there's some grants that we can get into, especially the gifted and talented. We can look into that. And did you? No, okay. So that we don't have a reduction in teachers, especially at, well, I don't want a reduction in teachers anywhere, but the elementary school was hit last year, and it's lost so many things over the year. The K-6 math coordinator, the K-8 science, the K-8 social studies, interventionist, unassigned teacher, and now we're into a new year, and there's things being eliminated from the elementary program once again. So I'd like to have us all just really take a really close look at this budget and see what else we can do.
Thank you, Liz. Okay, we're looking at an anticipated executive session. Somebody want to?
I move that the Board of Education enter into executive session for the purpose of discussing personnel, salary negotiations, and invite Dr. Scott Nichols, Superintendent of Schools, and Mr. Brian Greenleaf, Director of Finance and Operations, into the session.
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed, abstained? We are in executive session. Okay, so we are out of executive session, back into regular. Liz, did you want to?
Okay, Brian, we have reached a decision on your salary, and Jenna's going to put it in writing and give it to you on Friday. Okay? And until everything is in writing, I guess you just have to wait 2 more days. Okay? And then you can have, you can take a look at it, and if you have questions, you can give me a call. Okay.
Thank you. Can I get a motion to adjourn?
Move to adjourn?
Second.
Second.
Seconded by Liz, by Marcia, sorry. Any discussion? All in favor, signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstained. Meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everybody.